Welcome to episode 490 of the Recruitment Marketing and Sales Podcast. And I'm your host, Sharon Newey. Now, today's episode is part of our expert interview series, and I am delighted to introduce Jon Brooks because he's truly unique. He's the only person in the world who specialises exclusively in pricing strategies for recruitment and staffing businesses. So in today's conversation, Jon shares why pricing is one of the most overlooked yet critical aspects of running a successful recruitment company. And we explore how to communicate value to clients, why 66% of recruitment work goes unpaid on contingent models, and the surprising secret to winning that retained business. But here's a hint, this is not about how to sell a retainer. But Jon does talk about how recruitment companies can adapt and thrive in what is an increasingly AI-driven future, and why fees should actually be getting higher rather than lower, which is what some may have experienced in recent times. So this is going to be a very practical, action-packed session. So grab yourselves a notepad and a drink, and let's dive in.
Welcome to the Recruitment Marketing and Sales Podcast. An obsessive focus on marketing and sales is the only way to accelerate your company growth. So listen in now as we share the latest strategies and techniques guaranteed to deliver you more placements and profits.
So welcome, Jon, to the Recruitment Marketing and Sales Podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to be talking with you today.
Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, for everyone who is listening, Jon Brooks is a real expert, and I'm going to let you talk more about your background, Jon, but a real expert when it comes to the recruitment industry and looking at how we put together products and services that add value such that then people can charge an appropriate fee. And I know that is just a small part of what you do, Jon. Can I maybe just invite you to share a little bit more about your background for all our listeners and what you do at the moment? Because I know you're very busy on podcasts and speaking as well as working with your clients.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I help recruitment agencies with their pricing strategies. Now, amazingly, I'm the only person who does that in the world of recruitment, which you think
quite a unique advantage.
Yeah, I like that. I like an unfair advantage. Yeah, I'm likely to win this race if there's no one else in it. But it's amazing. Every recruitment agency has to have a price. Obviously, we all have to sit down in front of our clients, price our services, and then persuade the client to pay that price. So it's a huge part of every business. So it's interesting that there isn't more focus on it. I think it's just, it's what we do, or you just learn it on the job. But as with so many things, there's so much background, research, detail, things we can learn from other industries that can make a huge difference. And obviously, you sit down with a client and win a price or get them to agree to a package of services, it could be 20% more than you were expected to win. That's thousands of pounds more per role, per deal with a client. So it's a huge thing.
Yeah. And I'm curious, how did your career evolve into what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I started off with Reed. So for those who don't know, one of the big brand recruitment agencies in the UK. And that was brilliant. And I was on the grad scheme, which I think is still a great thing from what I've heard. You just get real opportunity and autonomy to try out different roles within the business, and it's a big business. And my second role there was working directly with Sir Alec Reed, who founded the business back in 1960. So I learned so much from him.
I imagine, yeah.
Literally decades of experience. And he is the definition of an entrepreneur. So he had so much creativity, so many ideas, and so commercially focused within that. So that meant building a lot of different things. And I'll skip over what they all are, but different services, different products, different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And when you do that, when you create a different service, you think, how do we price it? Now, if you price it the same way as everything else, it looks the same. The clients say, so what is this? Oh yeah, you give it some fancy blurb about what it is. And then you say, oh, if you say, and it'll cost you exactly the same as what you're doing now, they say, oh, maybe it's just smoke and mirrors. It's just words. So actually price is really important in that respect. If you say what we were doing costs, this new thing costs twice as much, justify it. Why?
Yeah.
Or it costs half as much. It allows you to, even the price itself helps define and position the product.
Yeah.
And we were lucky, or I was lucky, I led internally, I led a project with a management consultancy that specialised in value and price. So when they came in, I said, yes, I want to learn everything. And they'd never worked in recruitment before.
Ah, interesting.
They work with law firms, global engineering firms, manufacturing firms. So again, it was this ability to learn from so many other different industries and different cases. So really learn the theoretical approaches and then think, well, that's interesting. How do we apply that to a consultant sitting down with a client and talking about the role they need to fill? Did that until about 6 or 7 years ago. And then I'd always wanted to build my own thing, and the time was right. Although timing's always questionable. It was just before COVID. But spun out and created my own pricing consultancy for the recruitment business.
Fantastic. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because just before we pressed live, we were chatting about the world of tech and the pace of how tech's evolving. I'm sure you've probably been asked this before. And when you think about the evolution of AI, technology, how that is being brought into our industry, the changes that we've seen since COVID, and especially probably the last 12, 18 months, when you look out to the future, do you see a recruitment industry?
It's a great question. I think there are times when you think, oh my goodness, where is this going? It is hard to predict. If I think back to my time at Reed and what I learned from people who've been there for decades before me, they had gone through motorbike careers, driving around London, picking up CVs, taking them back to upload them to CMSs, and then to eventually to the early stages of the website. Then the real web, the digital revolution came along, LinkedIn came along, and all of those things. So there's an argument we have seen change, and recruitment has always adapted and developed and grown. If you chart the recruitment industry over the decades, it has got bigger and more
Absolutely.
important. LinkedIn's a fascinating example. I read something about this last week. LinkedIn allows anyone to find anyone. If that's all recruiters do, you'd think, oh, hiring managers could just do it themselves. And yet, since the advent of LinkedIn, recruitment agencies have got bigger, more valuable, fees have got bigger. So there's more value, and we're more important than ever. Now, AI is a massive change, and I'm not going to say I can predict what's going to happen, but we're already seeing things from the candidate side. AI applications can overwhelm hiring managers. And I always think, recruitment is really important, but it isn't focused on and it isn't invested on in an individual company. So in the past, they may not have paid for LinkedIn licenses because you only use them every so often, or different people using them at different times. They're expensive. Whereas for an agency, a recruitment agency, you say, the cost of a recruitment license is well worth it because I'm spreading it across tens, hundreds of clients. I think that's going to be the same with AI. I think there will be ways to deal with the tsunami of candidate applications that have been enabled by AI. Just that on that example alone. There will be ways to deal with that. They won't be cheap. And to give that to every hiring manager will be too expensive. Whereas a smart recruitment agency can say, hey, we've got a solution, either a tool we built buy in or a process we develop, and we can help you through that. So again, for me, recruitment agencies are all about, we'll help you through this process. And I think we've still got place in that.
I'm absolutely on the same page with you there. I think there's a client that I've been working with and coaching, and it's interesting that they work purely in an international market, and just looking at how they've used different elements of AI tools and put them together to provide a new service offering, and how that's been received. And it absolutely handles the issue that you've raised of just that tsunami of CVs. And really, it's not overly complicated. Putting it together and using different bits of software, I'm sure in time, and that might be in 12 months' time, that all that will be encompassed in one product that a company will kind of sell. And yet it's interesting because even using the technology, while it's simplified an awful lot, there is still, in the process, there is still quite a significant amount of time that actually requires a human to validate quite a lot. Now, maybe in 12 or 18 months' time, that might be halved because we can use AI to validate more of it. And yet there is still that human element that is there. I think some of the tools obviously are going to simplify things an awful lot. And yet I think some of the things and some of the conversations that I've been hearing and been part of is, if AI and tech is going to free up all this time, what are we going to do with that time? Really, that's about leveraging it and using it to actually, dare I say, talk to more people, get out, go and do more site visits, and have more meetings with clients to really nurture that relationship and develop it towards being a strategic partner, etc. Because that's probably something that, as an industry, a lot of people moved away from. Everything's online. You can work nationally, European, internationally. And we all know that actually sitting down with somebody face to face is a different kind of conversation than we can have virtually. So yeah, I very much can share your thoughts there, and it's going to be interesting to see how it does evolve. So, something, let's say, that I notice, certainly not just within our own clients, but with people that perhaps reach out, they want to talk about their marketing, is that there are, and I don't know if this is certainly not everybody, but there is a chunk of, I think, the business owner audience, sometimes people who've been in business for quite some time, Jon, as well, who they know their markets incredibly well, they have got big networks, and I've often described some of their service offerings as a search level headhunting service. And yet I'm having a conversation with someone who is fundamentally a contingency recruiter, and people not valuing what they do, their knowledge, their experience. What do you think that is about? Why do some recruiters not value what they do and how they go about doing what they do?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. One of the questions I ask recruitment owners, especially if they've spun out from a bigger agency and set up their own agency, I ask them why.
Yeah.
They often say, look, I could do it better.
Yes.
I'm experienced. I can add so much value to a client and I can do things better. And I say, are you? And they say, yes, here are the examples. Here's how I'm doing things better. And then I say, how much do you charge compared to what the big agency charged? They say, oh, a little bit more so I can win business. And that doesn't make sense. If you're adding more value, if your clients are valuing what you're doing, if you're doing things better, that deserves a premium price tag.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, from all the pricing research, from the history of business, if things are sold as better, but then priced cheaper, then there's a disconnect. There's a problem. Clients say that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So then they don't believe that the service is better. So there's a huge amount of psychology that goes into this.
Yeah.
If you're setting up your business to create a premium service, it demands a premium price tag. And you have to be confident in doing that.
Yeah.
So as you say, a lot of business owners don't value what they don't understand what they do. And I think it's natural. Again, so I studied psychology as well as pricing. They are interlinked. Humans struggle to sell themselves, especially Brits, I would say. So we can be unsure about how much we should sell ourselves. So if you've set up on your own, or if you're building a business where you are the face of it, it can be hard to say, yeah, I'm premium, I'm worth it. So that can be a challenge. I think most recruiters, if you've been in recruitment for a number of years, think of the number of times you've been beaten down. First on cold calls. No, we don't need recruiters. We don't want recruiters. No, you're not offering anything of value. And then in negotiations with more senior client contact, where they say, no, we can't pay this. Yeah, you've got to match. You've got to halve your fee. You've got to match what everyone else is doing. We don't value do. Oh, yeah. And then you bring procurement into it, and it's their job
Absolutely,
to undermine us. Procurement people and pricing people are the yin and yang in business. And there aren't enough pricing people. So we all get beaten down by procurement. Yeah. And they are studying how to undermine our confidence, how to get lower prices. And we need to fight back. We need to study how to get higher prices, how to present our value better. So it makes perfect sense that we do sometimes undervalue ourselves. But my message is there are tools, there are methods, there are ways where we can present our value in a way that helps us. So we believe in our self-worth, so that clients see our true value, and so we can justify that premium price.
Yeah. And I imagine just from our conversations prior that you probably run couple of days workshops on exactly how to do that. But maybe I could ask you to just condense that into a few minutes of how would a business owner begin to start thinking about charging premium pricing? What do they need to consider?
Yeah. So the first thing I do is we need to think about what our clients value. We can't just be internal saying, oh yeah, this is good, or I want a retainer, or whatever. We have to think, what do our clients value? And there's a whole set of exercises around that. We then have to think, what value do we create and can we create? And then we have to map those two things together. And I think a lot of people either do this superficially, or they think about what value can we create and then take it to market, but they haven't thought about the client side. And that's where marketing comes in. That's why marketing is understanding the market and knowing how to talk to the market. So yeah, understanding what clients value, understanding what value we can create, and then mapping those across so we can say, yeah, these are the right things. These are the right ways we build our premium products. Because something can't be premium just because we say it's good.
No.
Premium because the market values it.
Absolutely. And just, if I could just maybe stay on that side of understanding what the client values, to what degree do you think that there's a perception that recruitment companies know what clients value and perhaps don't always go and have a much more rigorous conversation or become more curious about that? And so that they create something based on perception, and that can just be that. And so you might have a disconnect because that's not reality.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I would say, it's really important to go out and talk to clients. And if you're just talking to them in sales environments, in a sales context, then that's going to be difficult. They're going to be on their guard. They're not going to say, oh yeah, here's what I would pay more for. Yeah. Because they know they're being sold to. So getting under their skin, building relationships, but recruiters are good at that. Now, just to take a different lens on this, I often talk to recruitment leaders, recruitment agencies, where there is a lot of internal knowledge about what clients value. So it might be that clients have asked us to do more for them. Maybe they've even offered to pay more. I've had examples of that where actually going through the business and a recruitment consultant will say, oh yeah, no, one of my clients once said, can I give you a bit more because it's such an important role? Let's dive into that. That's a case study in where a client would pay a premium.
Yeah.
What we need to do is collect all of that information, analyze it through the lens of how are we going to create more premium products, or how are we going to package different services to sell them at a premium. So yes, absolutely. You need to know as much as you can about your clients, but I wouldn't discount the internal knowledge you have.
That's already there. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I guess it's pooling that knowledge. And sometimes that doesn't always happen, doesn't it? If you've got a larger organization, let's say, and you've got a team working different verticals, there can be situations where that knowledge becomes siloed. And so I guess that's where it's really important to just step back and pool it all.
Yeah, and no one in an average recruitment agency, no one is owning pricing. No one is owning packaging services. So there's nowhere for it to go.
Yeah.
So a recruitment consultant would say, oh, that was interesting. And that's the end of it.
Yes.
There was nothing they could do with it. They didn't know. Yeah. And if they'd pushed it up to their director or their founder, it's unlikely anything was going to happen.
Yeah.
But then we come to the point where a recruitment leader says, we do want to think about how we're packaging our products, how we're pricing what we do. And it's at that point you need to say, how do we get those case studies and those examples in?
Yeah. So I guess just listening to you there, it really does remind me of almost like some first principles of marketing, isn't it? Understand your market, understand what their problems, what their challenges are, and design your offering towards that. Whereas so often people will launch something because they've got a great idea and they take it out to market and then can be surprised when it doesn't necessarily do as well as they hope. So some good first principles then. Yeah.
Having said that, we're skirting around differentiation.
Yes.
And differentiation is so important.
Yeah.
It's hard. You can't charge a premium if you're a commodity.
No.
Yeah. And in lay terms, that just means if you look the same as everyone else, on earth would a client pay you more when they can get it cheaper from someone who looks the same as you?
Yeah.
What I've worked with, especially smaller, more boutique agencies, especially when the founder is has a real passion for something. So that's not market led completely. I'm thinking of one example where the founder I was working with really wanted to get into psychometric assessments, the psychology of business, the psychology of teams. So that was his passion. And we know that has some relevance to recruitment. But on the client side versus the internal side, he was really driving it internally. But that gave him a point of differentiation. So we used that. And then it was the mapping to say, great, we've got this asset, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
We've got this advantage. Let's map that across and see how that works. So it wasn't market led to begin with, but we then connect it to the market.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess that is one example. And you're right. I did once hear many years ago a mentor say that it's hard to differentiate yourself in a highly competitive market. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. And fundamentally, when you've got such a high volume of SME and micro recruitment companies, how do they stand out in busy markets when they're competing against lots of other micros, SMEs, but also they're competing against large organizations as well?
Yeah, I think it's not easy, but when you get it right, everything else gets easier. So I always say it's worth spending that extra time. Again, are we doing a superficial exercise to just say, 3 bullet points, what are our USPs? Yeah, there's a danger of kind of chat GPTing it. Here's 10 bullet points about me. Tell me what my USPs are. I'll take them out to market. Hang on. That is not enough time spent on working out.
Yeah.
But let's really define and be confident in our unique or points of difference and how they come together. Yeah, there's a big debate. Can anything be unique?
Yeah.
Maybe on its own, potentially. But if you put three fairly unique things together, the chance of your competitors having all of those three and blending them in the way you blend them is very unlikely. The important thing there is we then need to communicate that to the client. Because I'm sure you are the same as me. We see recruitment agencies who look incredibly different to each other. But you then look at the wording they use on their website, for example, the language they use in front of clients. And I sympathize with clients. Everyone sounds the same.
Yeah.
And you and I get under an agency's skin and we say, oh, there's all this brilliant stuff and the way they do it, and they do it so differently to everyone else. That's not enough. No. The most important thing is, what does a client see? And I'm not saying smoke and mirrors. It's not about putting on a front.
No.
It's about saying, this is my true value. These are my differentiators. These are my competitive advantages.
Yeah.
And then connecting that and communicating that in a way that the client says, yes, I can see you're different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, and I guess going back to something that we were chatting about a few minutes ago in terms of, if you have a scenario where, the business owner doesn't necessarily value the different elements of what they do, because I think, and they still can be a perception that doesn't everybody else do it how we do it? No, they don't. And literally this morning, I just come off a call with a client and they have got such a great aftercare program and not really kind of like shouting about it an awful lot. And that's not uncommon, is it? And so it is a way where people actually can use that as a point of difference, but it's got to be communicated.
Speaking of the challenges that we discuss on this podcast around attracting the clients that you want and the candidates to fill the roles that you get, it's a competitive market, and Sharon and I have taken some time away from the business to actually put together something that will help you figure out exactly where you stand with your marketing right now. Now, we've created a quick assessment specifically for recruitment search and staffing business owners just like you, and it's designed to help you identify whether you're effectively attracting both clients and candidates with your current marketing approach, or if there are some gaps that you need to address. Now, this quiz will just take a few minutes and it'll give you a picture of where your marketing is working and where it might be falling short. Because to be honest, in a market where 87% of companies are struggling with skills gaps and candidates are ghosting left, right and centre, your marketing really does need to be spot on. And when you've taken this assessment, we will email you your personalised PDF. So it's personalised to you and it's related to the scores that you achieve and where you fit in a ranking. And what we know works when people are low on one score or high on another. And I think you'll find that incredibly useful too. So if you want to know and find out about your marketing, how it stacks up, then go to superfastrecruitment.co.uk/scorecard, and that will take you to a page. Put your name and email address in there, and then you'll go straight into the quiz. And again, it only takes a few minutes. Trust me, it's worth the time, especially if you feel like you're not achieving the results that you want currently with the market the way that it is, and you really want to assess where you are so you can make some changes. So let's get back to that podcast.
Yeah, do you know what? I just wrote an article about Hays, which I don't often use them. Yeah, I think you and I both work with quite niche boutique agencies for the most part. But I was really interested in something they've done this year. In their annual report, they put together their list of competitive advantages. And you could probably guess what the headlines are. Yeah, it is their people. It is their tech. It is their network. Yeah, what's new? Everyone says that. But what they did was went deeper. So they then said, it is our people. And then they wrote a paragraph about specifically, they were putting numbers on it. They were saying, these are the number of people who have this is the experience we've got. And this is what it means to you when you're engaging us to help you hire. So they went a level deeper. Because again, there's a danger of saying, oh yeah, we've got the latest tech. What even is the latest? What does that mean? Yeah, do you even know what the latest tech is? Whereas if you can spend more time on that point, you can get to the point where you say, and this is why it's important.
Yeah.
And this is why it's different. Is it that this tech in the hands of our people combined with our market insights and our data, it makes it clearly different to what anyone else is able to
doing. Yeah.
So it's spending that time and going deeper. So I was really impressed with what Hayes did in laying that out.
Yeah. And I guess just picking up on that theme of thinking more deeply about what a company is doing, how they communicate their value, and how they price themselves. That there is obviously the classic pricing models, contingency, contract, temp, retained. And I think to some people, it's almost then they are my options. But actually, if we start to think more deeply, Jon, what other pricing strategies are there for people to consider?
Yeah, this is a real theme today, isn't it? Go deeper. Yeah, that's where the riches are. You can really dive in. Yeah, so you take those examples. So you've got your perm, your temp, your contract, whatever else. What we've got there is different ways we do stuff. We've got to look at it from a client point of view. I see lots of recruitment agency websites saying, oh yeah, we can do your perm and your temp for you. They're completely different services for completely different problems. So actually, when you say, oh, we've got a range of services, we haven't. If you've got a perm vacancy and you're looking for a perm candidate, most recruitment agencies only have one approach. They say, oh yeah, we'll recruit that for you. And that's it. And there's a huge missed opportunity there. So again, we can go deeper. It's a bit like going to a car dealership and saying, oh, I need a car. Or I need to buy a car. And they say, great, here's a car. They wouldn't do that. You wouldn't expect that.
No.
There's so many more questions. So again, we can go deeper there by saying, you want a perm vacancy. So you want a candidate for your perm vacancy. Let's look at what challenges you have to do that. Let's talk you through the ways we can do that to get the best person for you and the best outcome for you. And let's talk about what you need there. Taking that deeper approach also means you're engaging the client in a discussion about value. What do you value in filling this role? And that's really important. A mistake I made early on in my career, we put together a way of selling a perm service. We only had one perm service. And we created a list of 10 things we do. This is the 10-step process for our perm. And we thought, this is great. This is really going to revolutionize it because it says everything we do in detail and it's great. Guess what clients were thinking when we read a long document to them about how we do everything in detail? They didn't care. We were just saying, we're going to do something for you. Can we just have 5 minutes to talk to you about it? They were probably thinking about what they were going to cook for dinner or their next meeting. They could be completely passive in that conversation because it was a one-way conversation.
Yeah.
Whereas when we engaged in it with options and choices, it becomes a two-way conversation. We're saying, oh yeah, there's, for example, if you've got a perm role, there are 3 approaches we could take to fill this. Or what's more important, getting the person in the role and you take it from there, or actually it's relatively easy to get people in, but how they perform beyond that, that kind of engaging choice means the client has to sit up, has to take notice, has to engage in that conversation. And that's where they realize, wow, there's a lot of value in what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, the idea of a one size fits all service where we just say, great, you need a perm person, here's our perm service.
Yeah.
Clients switch off. They can't see the difference. So it goes back to being a commodity. It looks the same as everyone else's perm service.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I think, more and more I have conversations with people who want to move away from the commodity, the transactional conversation, and want to be seen as that strategic advisor, a partner, have a seat at the table to have a different conversation. And yet I wonder if some of them are not quite sure actually how to make that transition, how to get the client to be willing to invest time in a different kind of conversation when they're in the groove of the transactional thing themselves, because that's what they've experienced working with so many different agencies. So it's it's being able to go deeper, which, as you say, is quite a theme. So
completely. Just on that point, you have to go deeper if you want to find out which of your clients would value that consultative, strategic partner to help them with their recruitment. Not all of them will. So you have to put that on the table with other options against that. And you have to realize that some clients will say, no, I just need what I'm currently getting.
Yeah.
And others will say, this would help solve my problem I have now. So it's engaging them in that conversation.
Yeah. And I guess if we let's extend this conversation then as one example. So if you have someone who really wants to make that transition from contingency to having the confidence to be able to ask for a retained service, what are some of the stages perhaps that someone needs to go through to get themselves to the point where that they can make that transition to retain? Because there's no doubt, I think, there are more conversations that I have where people are really coming towards the end of being willing to work and not get paid.
Yeah. And when you put it like that, it makes perfect sense. And it's madness that for so long we've been willing to work without getting paid. If your fill rate is even better than the average in the industry, if you're filling 1 in 3 roles, you're only getting paid for 1 in 3 times of the work you do.
Yeah.
So 66% of the time, you're not getting paid for what you do. And that's brutal. That probably, it definitely affects your self-worth and it affects your value. But it doesn't have to be that way. So we have a model. We know that clients can and do sometimes pay fees up front. So absolutely, it's how do we get there? And more people are doing that. My 2 main things, main pieces of advice there are, first of all, think about the client, not you. Yes, retained business is so much more valuable to us than contingent business. But going out to market and saying that is not going to win us more business.
No,
it's
absolutely.
not a charity. We can't say to our clients, this would be so much better for us.
Yeah.
But that message comes across so often in the way recruiters package retained non-contingent services. So we need to be really careful about that. Now, in my view, the answer is not to say to the client, not to sell the retainer to the client. So I see a lot of people saying, you get a retainer, here are the benefits. Benefits, not features. So they're doing the right thing at a tactical level, but strategically, we're getting it wrong. We're still selling a retainer, which at the end of the day is just a payment schedule. Are you paying me now? Are you paying me at a different time? Are you paying me further on? There's no intrinsic value to that. It's just when stuff gets paid.
Yeah.
So my advice on how to win retainers is create demand. Not demand for the retainer, but the demand for your service. When a client really wants to work with you, they will pay what you tell them to pay. They will literally work to your terms. So don't spend time selling the retainer, selling against contingent and all
Love
that.
it.
Spend all your time getting the client begging to work with you. Yeah, I think the people we're talking to here are mostly business owners or senior leaders in recruitment businesses. Think about a supplier you've wanted to work with. When I put together a book, I had seen a designer online and I thought, I really want, if I ever make a book, he would just be the perfect person to do the cover.
Yeah.
That'd be incredible. And actually, so then I approached him when I put the book together and said, look, would you do this? And it was within my budget. I was pretty much willing to pay him anything because I'd already got beyond the point of who do I want? And the demand was so high from my side that he could have asked me to pay him in any way, all up front, whatever. So I was absolutely willing to do whatever he told me to do in order to work with him. So that's what we need to do as recruiters. We need to work on our clients so that they say, yes, I really want to work with you. How can I work with you? And then it's very easy to say, you pay a bit of the fee now and some more of the fee over here. And it's up to us. And they will say yes, because actually when you pay a fee doesn't matter if you really want to work with someone.
Yeah. And so I guess perhaps a closing question then, right? Because values being the theme that's run through our whole conversation. As we look forward, we talked about technology and how that's going to be influencing our industry. How do you see how people can add value moving forward as a recruitment company that's going to allow them to be different, stand out, and engage, get to a point where they are really engaged with clients and that they can ask retained fees because of that value? How are they going to add this value, Jon?
Recruiters have to add more value in the future. And that starts now. Tech is so good now that the lower level stuff will fade away. It won't be given to recruitment consultants. So we have to go up market. We have to go up the value chain. And that is a good thing. Most people I talk to want to do that. They're proud of what they want to do. And they want closer partnerships with their clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we have to do that. Summarizing what we've talked about today, a lot of recruiters and a lot of good recruitment agencies already have that added value within them. So it's about understanding where that is and what that is. It's about mapping it to the client, so understanding what the client values. And then perhaps most importantly, it's about presenting it in a way where the client can see that value.
Yeah.
Because as I say, most agencies have so much value within them, but we struggle to communicate it so that clients say, wow, yes, you are a premium provider of a premium high value service. So it is within us. The future of the market is, will demand high value recruitment services, but it's about us understanding what those are, presenting them in a way that clients understand them, and then the retainers will follow. And in fact, the retainers are a logical necessity.
Yeah.
It would be even more crazy to be working contingent at the level of value we talked about. Yeah. Earlier on, I mentioned prices are so often a signifier of value. So again, as we go up market, I think fees need to be getting higher. We need to be saying this is premium. We need to be increasing our rates and being more confident in saying, yes, you work to my terms. Yeah. Because our service is going to be so good and so important for the bigger challenges that our clients face in the future.
Fantastic. Great. I could sit here and we could talk value and marketing in so much more detail as well. And I just want to say thank you for sharing some great insights today, because I think if people listen to this, there's a lot that they can take away and start making changes and look at how they're communicating value and hopefully appreciating the value that they've currently got. Now, if people want to get in touch, Jon, what are the best ways of getting in touch with you and what you do?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn. I try and post ideas and thoughts and snippets on there. That's what LinkedIn is great for, and have that initial kind of conversation. Look me up, Jon Brooks, no H, no E. I'm a minimalist. I then like to explore things in more detail. So I run a Substack. So that's an email. I send a weekly email out to subscribers. So there's a few thousand people, recruiters signed up to that to learn more about pricing models, pricing ideas, analogies of how pricing is done in different industries and how we can learn from that. So that is pricing.substack.com. And again, the link is on my LinkedIn if you can't remember that. And then, you're welcome to drop me a line. As you can tell, I like talking about the value of recruitment, and I like talking about pricing and how we can price our services better.
Fantastic. And I'm looking forward to kind of like having more of this conversation in a few weeks' time when you join us at the annual SFC event. So thanks for today. I will see you very soon. And we'll grab a drink at the bar.
Perfect. Brilliant. I will see you there.
Take care, Jon.
Bye.
Bye now.
If you enjoy this podcast and this year you are ready to take your marketing to the next level, then check out Superfast Circle. This is a unique marketing program designed specifically for recruiters and their marketeers. You get access to 2 virtual marketing directors, you get consultancy, you get your hand held through the whole process, training, consulting, and we provide content resources. So go over to superfastrecruitment.co.uk/join and check out what's available.